As part of the 2016 Zero Fatality and Incident campaign commissioned by General President Dean, this video is intended to provide information and guidelines protecting ironworkers from fall hazards associated with temporary floor and roof openings in the workplace. We want to challenge all members to see something, say something, to prevent unsafe acts and conditions that may result in serious injuries due to falls. Falls through temporary floor openings is one of the deadly dozen hazards that must be recognized and avoided. Specific topics covered in the video are recognition of fall hazards from floor openings and ladderway openings, proper use of the hazard access zone and the cone and bar system, specific training on installation and use of the hazard access zones, techniques for safety removal of floor opening covers, and avoiding a deadly mistake.
Hi, I'm Rick Seifert, Safety Director for Level 10 Construction. What you're going to see here is a cone and bar system that we have found very effective for making people aware of the hazard of an open deck. No other trades are supposed to be up here during that construction. The ironworkers own the deck. This is for the ironworkers' protection.
It's a problem on every job, every floor, because everybody wants to get up there and do their work real fast. You put up signs and literally barricades and try to get the general contractor to tell the other contractors that they're not supposed to be up on a floor until it is turned over.
I believe it's a very good system. I personally have experience with it on many jobs, but the ironworkers have extensive experience through hundreds of jobs that this system is extremely effective, easy to apply, and there have been no falls documented with this system in place.
We're working with the safety department and our contractors to train our apprentices and our journeymen the best practices and the proper way to cover and uncover a hole. We cover fall protection in every week-long class that we give here, and then we come out and do the hands-on. That's where the rubber meets the road, when the guys can actually get out here, put their hands on it, practice it under ideal conditions, so when they get to the job, they're dialed in.
We treat these floor covers as a safety device, and we expect everyone who comes onto our projects to respect this piece of plywood because it's there to save you. We expect you to follow our policies and procedures and industry standards on how you remove and recover holes on the job site. We use a lot of signage. It's a way that we communicate the hazard to ourselves and others. We have A-frame signs that we put at all entrances to the work floor and off the elevators. As soon as somebody gets off the floor, it says, "Danger, iron workers only, open holes." But you have to be able to have a means to alert the other trades and unauthorized people not to come up on the floor. First item, fall through unprotected openings are the #1 deadly dozen hazard. Hazard zone using cones and bars are a safe and effective method. Before entering into the hazard awareness zone, the following must be done. Fall arrest system in place and in use. Cone and bar system correctly set, 6 feet back from the opening. Use properly designated and labeled cones. Do not use damaged cones or bars. Cones and bars are not to be used for overhead protection. This is the hazard awareness zone that we use on our welding floors, and we use it to identify that beyond these bars and cones there's floor openings. We use green cones specifically because so much red and orange is used on the job. We want high visibility and more awareness, so we use the green cones. We have them labeled danger floor opening on both sides on the cone, so it's identified, another way of communicating the hazard. And we use this cone and bar system, which is our haz zone. And these bars are expandable. They go in and out, so we can set the cones where we need them to. And the way the system's set up is we take the deck off, it's taken off for the welding, we install the cones, and then anybody who crosses the cone zone or the hazard awareness zone has to be tied off. The cone and bar system is superior to a danger tape system. And since we've had this system in place, we have not had any of our iron workers fall through floor holes. You see danger tape a lot on projects being used to identify a danger area. And what we commonly find is that it's laying on the deck, people are tripping over it because it's been tore down, And what happens with the wind is the danger tape blows over the danger area. So what happens is you think you're being warned by danger tape, and by the time you get up to the edge of it, it's right to the edge of the hazard. With the rigid system here, it guarantees that it's not going to blow into the danger zone. It's reusable. When we're done, we stack them up and we just move them to the next work area. Anytime you cross within 6 feet of that opening, you're using fall protection. When you're on this side, you don't have to use fall protection because the cone and bar system is warning you that there's a hazard. When we're on a floor where we have to pick up the decking, to pull the decking back to go ahead and start the welding operation, the first thing we do is we install the cone and bar system. And the reason we do that is because as soon as the deck is pulled up, there's going to be a long open hazard there. So the others that are on the floor working will be protected by this cone and bar system while the apprentices are going ahead and taking up the deck. So now we have the cone and bars in place. We know that they're going to be 6 feet back from the opening because we measured it out. Now we'll go ahead and pick up the deck. As you notice, the apprentices are using self-retracting lifelines as their means of protection when they're picking up the deck. The deck is now up, ready to be welded. All others are protected by the hazard awareness zone, and go ahead and step over. Here's one example of one of the most deadliest mistakes ironworkers make when they're removing plywood off a floor. We're going to show you an example of this right now. He picks it up, he doesn't look, and now he's in the hole. Doesn't even think about it, doesn't look. Your natural reaction is to walk forward with that plywood, and that's the deadly mistake ironworkers make. Our procedure on how to pick up plywood safely is the one-hand method first. We have you pick up the corner with one hand. The reason we do that is if you're picking up plywood with one hand, you aren't as likely to walk forward. Once he picks it up, he's going to walk backwards with the plywood and drag it backwards. When you drag it backwards, you're dragging it away from the hole. As long as you're dragging it away from the hole, you aren't going to fall in the hole. We're going to use 2 iron workers to pick up the plywood. They're going to work together as a team when they're going ahead and stripping the plywood off the floor in preparation to move it up to another area. They look to make sure there's nothing under there, there's a hole, so they go ahead and walk it over. But they're walking away from the hole when they pick up the plywood. We use a lot of plywood on the floors to protect openings. When you use a lot of plywood, you have to be very cautious that you have enough bearing on the plywood and the surface around it. Because if you don't, what happens if you leave traps for people? And that's somebody unknowingly walking across the plywood, walks on a section of plywood that doesn't have enough bearing, and this is what happens. The plywood upends and it pulls the person through the hole below. It's very important that the plywood is checked every morning to make sure it has enough bearing. And after any windstorms or high winds, you want to go check all your plywood to make sure it has enough bearing so you don't end up with a situation like this.
This video is part of the Deadly Dozen video series that are designed to address incident trends and help prevent workplace injuries to ironworker members throughout the United States and Canada. We want to challenge all members to see something, say something, to prevent unsafe acts and conditions that may result in serious injuries due to falls. Falls through temporary floor openings is one of the deadly dozen hazards that must be recognized and avoided. Don't make a deadly mistake by working near unprotected floor and roof opening covers, and always use the proper techniques for installing and removing covers. Funding for the Deadly Dozen video series is provided through Impact.